Hi, welcome to the ACT 2018 test science portion. This is passage number 2. In this particular passage, there are some samples that have different mass, volume, density, melting points, and boiling points. And then there are some students who make predictions about these different samples. So when you look at this very first passage, you'll notice that two samples have to have all 5 properties become the same substance. Student 2, 2 samples are the same if they have 3 or more of the properties. Student 3 says 2 samples must have these properties to be the same substance. And this student says the 2 samples will be the same if these 3 properties are the same. So that's kind of what you always want to refer back to when you answer these questions. So question number 7, based on student's number 1 explanation of the same substances compose both of the samples in which of the following pairs. Basically, you can kind of just look and say, you can look at A and B, look at A and B. When you look at A and B, you have to see 5 properties being all the same. And so right off the bat, I can rule it out because right here, they're not the same. Do the same thing with the second one, B and C. They're right off the bat, I can see they're not the same. C and D, I can see that they are the same, and so I would stop there by realizing that the correct answer is C. Okay, so that's how you solve that first problem. All right, next page, number 8. Based on student 3, so now you're looking at student 3, and student 3 is saying that they have to have mass, volume, and density to be the same. So students' 3 explanations, the same substance composed both of the samples in which of the following pairs. Do the same kind of procedure. Look at A and C and see if they have mass, volume, and density the same. And so you can look and see if A and C, if they have, mass, volume, and density. So now we're looking at just these columns right here. So A and C, you would see they have nope. So A and C are not going to be a correct choice. B and E, do they have the same? No, that's not going to be the correct choice. And then you do the same thing for F and G, and F and G do not. And then you can look at G and H, and when you look across, you can see that G and H have the same properties, so that you know that this is the correct answer. So letter J. All right, next one, number 9. Suppose the temperature of sample A, so now we're looking at sample A. Sample A, the temperature is increased to 250 degrees. At 250 degrees, would the sample be a solid or a liquid? So now let's just look at sample A, and we're looking at 250 degrees. So I'm going to clean all of this up over here. So sample A is this one, and we're going to stay in this little column up here. And so we said it was going to be 250 degrees. Is it going to be a liquid or a solid? So right here, melting point. Melting is going to turn a solid into a liquid. And so at this particular degree, it's going to become a liquid at 250 because it is above that number. This number right here, if it was above that, it would turn it into a gas. So right now I know it's going to turn it into a liquid. So I know it's not going to be a solid. It's not going to be a solid. And so it's going to be a liquid because the melting point of sample A is 126. That is true. And then we also can rule out liquid because the melting point. So we know that the correct answer is C, because we know that we'll turn a liquid above 126 degrees Celsius. Number 10. Consider the claim that 2 samples have the same density. So we're looking at 2 samples with the same density will always be composed of the same substance, regardless of the values of the other 4 properties. Which of the students, if any, would be likely to agree with this claim? And so when you go back and you look at these different student samples, we want to look and see they have to have the same density. And so when we think about this student over here said they have to have all 5 properties the same. That one doesn't work. This student said they have to have all 3 properties, at least 3 properties the same. This student said they have to have 3 properties the same, and this student said they have to have 3 properties the same. So when you look at this, none of the students would support that because they're saying that they only have to have density, and we're looking at they have to have more than that. So that is the correct answer for 10. Number 11, which of the 2 students, 2, 3, or 4, would be likely to agree that sample A and B are composed of the same substance? So then we have to go back to the chart. So students 2, 3, and 4, and we're looking at samples A and B. So let's clean this up again. So now we're only looking at samples A and B, and so we want to know, would they agree that they are the same substance? So you have to refer back to, and we're looking for student number 2, number 3, and number 4. So we want to read their claim. So student number 2 says 3 or more. Oops, sorry about that. Student 2 says that they have to have 3 or more of the properties. So then we can look at this one. So this student has 1, 2, this property has, A and B has 3 properties are the same. So that student would work. Student 3 says they have to have the same mass, volume, and density. That one would also work. And then student 4 says they have to have density, melting point, and boiling point. So that student would not work. So the only correct answer is A for number 11. All right, last 2. Consider the statement. The 2 samples that have the same mass, volume, and density and boiling point are composed of the same substance, even if the 2 substances have different melting points. Which of the students, 2 or 4, if either, would be likely to agree with this? So we're looking at mass, volume, density, and boiling point. So again, you can go back to the chart. Let's clean this up again. So we're looking at student 2 and 4. So we're going to clean all of this up here. So we're just going to look at student 2 and 4. So 2 and 4, they say they have to have mass, volume. I'm going to highlight mass, volume, density, and boiling point. So then they're saying, consider the statement, 2 samples that have the same mass, volume, density, and boiling point are composed of the same substance. Would student 2 or student 4 agree with that? So student 2 says if they have 3 or more of the properties, well, these have the same values, but student 4 says they have to have density, melting point, and boiling point. And so we don't see that being on there. So we know that student 2 is going to be the one that's going to accept that, and that is the correct answer is F. And then finally, number 13. Suppose the temperature of sample D, so we're looking at sample D, is increased to 890 degrees Celsius. Will the sample's density be lower or higher than it was at 20 degrees? So let's go back to that chart looking at sample D and 890 degrees. So here is sample D at 890 degrees Celsius, which is the number we're going to look at right there. That is above that. So at boiling point, liquids will become a gas. And so gases, right off the bat, we know it's going to become a gas. And we want to think about the density of that particular substance. So we would think that the sample will be lower because sample D will be a gas, correct? This one is talking about it being a liquid. That's wrong. This one's talking about a gas. I have to look at that one and a liquid. So let's compare A and C. So sample D will be a gas, and gases are generally having lower densities than solids. That is true because gases are very, very dense and they have a lot of space, and so that would be the correct answer for that one. So A is the correct answer. So that's the answers for passage number 2, and I hope that that's been helpful.